What's up, Buff Nation? My name is Oliver Hayes, bringing you this week's edition of Sko Buffs Live. I know there may be a bye week for the football team, but here at Sko Buff Sports, there are no weeks off.
You're right, Oliver. We're always on the run. My name is Saisri Kumar. It's a bye week here in Boulder, as Oliver mentioned, but before we look ahead this week, let's take you through the football team's statement win against the UCF Knights. Starting things off, here's Patrick Dawson at the postgame in Orlando.
What's up, Buff fans? Patrick Dawson here for Sko Buff Sports at FMC Mortgage Stadium in Orlando, Florida. The Colorado Buffaloes just played arguably their most complete win in all of the Deion Sanders era, dominating the UCF Knights by a score of 48-21. The game started off slow, both teams trading off interceptions, but once the Buffs' offensive machine got going, it just could not be stopped. Travis Hunter, although his 100-yard streak did come to a close, he had an interception, had a huge game today, continues to make his case for the Heisman. If he's not the favorite, I don't know who would be. Defensively, the Buffs forced 3 turnovers, did a very good job today keeping their running back in check. KJ Jefferson did have some progress on the ground, but overall, another great defensive performance by this Robert Livingston-led team. And now the Buffs go into the bye 4-1. They have already 2 conference wins, which is one more than they had last year. And they're going to go home, have a good bye week, and take on the Kansas State Wildcats in 2 weeks' time. I've been Patrick Dawson for Sko Buff Sports here in Orlando, Florida.
The football team shined in the torrential downpour in Orlando, routing UCF 48-21 on Saturday. Travis Hunter further cemented his case for the Heisman, finishing with both a receiving touchdown and an interception. Our very own Roberto Patrick Guerra caught a sweet flick of his Heisman pose. Shedeur Sanders passed for 290 yards and 3 scores. The run game emerged in what was Coach Prime's most complete game at the helm in Boulder. Sean Livingston's defense continued to progress, largely containing the most prolific run attack in the country in the Knights. Alejandro Mata connected on both field goal attempts, including a pivotal 46-yarder at the end of the first half to extend Colorado's early lead. It's a rare occurrence that all 3 phases of the game dominate for Colorado, as Coach Prime noted post-game. On Saturday, however, the Buffs were clicking on all cylinders in the biggest win of the Prime era. The Buffs look to build on their 4-1 start during the bye week before hosting number 20 ranked Kansas State next Saturday night at 8:15 p.m. on ESPN.
How's it going, Buff fans? Happy Friday. My name is Nick Evans, and I am back to give you this week's Buff Banner. Now that we're a good month into the football season, it's time to have that discussion. You know, this one. Today, I want to give a neutral, honest look at the 2024 Heisman race and how Travis Hunter shapes up against the rest. In my way too early finalist list, I predict right now that Travis Hunter will be in the top 4. Both him, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Cam Ward from Miami, those will all get an invite to New York, at least according to me. I'm going to take you through those 4 and what they can each do this season to bring home the Heisman in Week 15, and, more importantly, what might hold them back when the name is called. Let's start with the national media's favorite, Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. Now, let's start by how he can win it. First of all, he is by far the best running back in FBS football. It's not even close. Jeanty is a generational running back, and get ready to see him play on Sunday. He's one of the rare hybrids that's both an elusive back with great release, but also some weight on him too. He looks like a proto-Derrick Henry from his Alabama days right now. And for the sake of football, I really hope Jeanty materializes at the next level. Stat-wise, he leads the league in rushing yards, with the second highest player behind him is over 200 yards underneath him. The man almost has 1,000 rushing yards in Week 5, and they had a bye week. He has 13 touchdowns and is averaging over 10 yards every time he is handed the ball. If the Heisman winner is going to a non-QB this year, it will definitely be put in Jeanty's hands. But here's how he would lose the trophy. He plays for Boise State. The Mountain West is not only a Group of 5 conference, it's one of the worst in football, second to maybe the Sun Belt or the Conference USA. Could the lack of serious competition hinder his authenticity of his performance? That's up for the voters to decide in a few months. For me, he put up 200 yards against Oregon. I'd say he's legit. Keep in mind, though, no non-power player has won the Heisman since Roger Staubach won it for Navy back in 1963. He's no doubt the best running back in the country, but he may be held back by his own team. Next up, we have Jalen Milroe. I mean, what's not to like about this guy? SEC quarterback who became the QB frontrunner for the trophy after last week's classic against Georgia. How could Milroe lose the trophy? Well, he isn't too impressive in the stats category. He's far from the leader in passing yards and touchdown leader. In fact, he's not even in the top 50 in either category. Now, he is top 3 in QB rating over the season. No doubt he is a very smart quarterback, but tangibly, Milroe isn't anything special. But it's those intangibles that really make it hard not to make him the Heisman favorite. He is almost single-handedly carrying the Crimson Tide into the next dynasty after Saban. Bama lost their coach, countless transfers, and graduates. By all means, we didn't know how they would perform. And yet Milroe is making sure the transition is seamless. Now, be on the lookout for him, because if Bama is number 1 in the SEC by week 15, the trophy will almost guaranteed be his. So if you're rooting for Travis, I guess it's go Big Orange this season. Now for Cam Ward, the other quarterback of this race. Tangibly and intangibly, this guy is amazing. He leads the country in touchdowns and second in passing yards, which, by the way, he didn't stat pad the way that another certain SEC quarterback did a few weeks ago. If you're stat watching, this is your guy. How does he win the Heisman? By keeping his head down and playing some good football. You can make the argument that the ACC is the worst power conference this year, which might hurt his chances, but I disagree. Likewise with Milroe, if Miami tops the ACC, I'd almost have to give the trophy to Ward. The Canes have a pretty smooth schedule down the road, save for a potential ranked matchup against Louisville, but Ward is red hot. Now, how does he lose this Heisman? He doesn't. He reminds me of 1997 Peyton Manning in that Heisman race, when they said the same thing about him. That trophy was his to lose, and he did. And now it's Ward's. It's on him to be flawless. A single bad throw could lose that trophy for him. You might as well put that in the trash for his hopes. Just like Manning's Gators. He needs to stay perfect, because everyone else behind him will. And they will leapfrog him for that trophy if he's not careful. And lastly, here's why you're watching. Travis Hunter. How often has a potential Heisman winner been discussed on this campus this far into the CFB season? Anyway, what hasn't been said about this guy? First in snaps played by any player, and it's not even close. Top 5 in receiving yards and touchdowns, a game-winning forced fumble, and just an overall stud on defense. Travis is easily the best athlete in football right now. It's no wonder he might be the first overall pick in the spring. So, how does Travis lose the trophy? Well, the nature of the trophy. Let me put it bluntly. The Heisman is a quarterback and running back award. There are very, and I mean very, few exceptions. Devontae Smith won it in 2020 because that was one of the worst QB classes in football history, easily. Desmond Howard, the 1992 NFL draft class might be the worst NFL draft class ever, and that is not an understatement. Guess what the one other worst QB draft classes of all time was? 1988. Who won the Heisman that year? Tim Brown, a wide receiver. And then Charles Woodson won it, as I said, because Manning lost it. If it sounds like I'm pushing a narrative, yeah, probably. My point is, I hope you understand just how stacked the odds are against Travis. Not only is this a huge thing for the Buffs, but the fact that the Heisman frontrunner is a defensive player and wide receiver is one of the most unique storylines in modern football history. So lastly, how does Travis win it? Well, if there's any exception to the QB running back rule, it would be none other than Travis Hunter. So lastly for today, let's take a look at my personal Heisman race. It kills me as a Colorado student, but Cam Ward is my personal number 1. This trophy is his to lose. But hey, if he messes up just one game, guess who takes his spot? My number 2, Travis Hunter. The Big 12 is wide open for the Buffaloes, and even though they're on a bye, they are facing down their biggest opponent of the whole season. If the Buffs beat Kansas State, there will be a serious conversation for Travis as the Heisman favorite. But until then, he's my number 2. All in all, I think this will be one of the greatest Heisman races in college football history. I hope you're just as invested in this race as I am. And that'll do it for this week's Buff Banner. Once again, my name is Nick Evans, and back to you guys at the desk.
Week 5 is in the books, and the Heisman odds, they're wild right now. After another impressive performance against Big 12 rivals UCF, Hunter's odds have risen up the Heisman rankings, with him now having the 3rd best betting odds to win the Heisman. Hunter sits ahead of some very notable names like Oregon's Dylan Gabriel, Texas's Quinn Ewers, and Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, just to name a few. Now Hunter's odds only fall behind Miami's Cam Ward and new current favorite Alabama's Jalen Milroe after his strong performance against Georgia. That's not all the good news for the Buffs and Heisman candidates though, as more talk is surrounding Hunter's teammate Shedeur Sanders. He continues to slowly climb up the rankings, but Sanders currently isn't in line to be considered in the top 5 conversations for the Heisman winner. but with the way he's been playing all season, don't be surprised if he continues to climb up the rankings more if his strong outings continue.
After last week's dominant victory over UCF, the Buffs find themselves in second place in the Big 12 standings. They are currently tied with Texas Tech and are just one non-conference game behind BYU. This leaves the Black and Gold within striking distance of that number one spot. The Buffaloes are using the bye week to prepare for their next Big 12 game against Kansas State, who are currently sitting at 1-1 in the conference and 4-1 on the season. This upcoming matchup provides the Buffaloes with an opportunity to continue their climb up the standings and solidify their position as a force to be reckoned with in the Big 12. We got to head to a break, but the varsity soccer team reached new heights in the rankings this week, and one very familiar Colorado alum might very soon be crowned a WNBA champion. We'll be bringing that and more after the PSA.
The soccer team was able to pull through in a tight matchup against the Kansas Jayhawks thanks to a goal from freshman Jace Hawley. This last Sunday, the two teams faced off at Prenta Field, another Big 12 matchup. It was a very physical game as Kansas drew 18 fouls and CU drew 12. CU had only 4 shots on goal the whole game, but were able to score one in the 81st minute of the game. Jace Hawley was assisted by Hope Leba and Faith Leba. Jordan Knightis had 3 saves to keep the Jayhawks scoreless, but the Buffs won 1-0.
The women's soccer team received a new season-high ranking last Saturday, coming in at number 14 in the nation. A tie against Baylor last Thursday snapped the Buffs' 8-game win streak, but they still yet to lose a match since August 18th. The Buffs have yet to receive a number 1 vote this season, but they keep climbing the ladder coming into the season's final month.
And with that, it's time for this week's trivia question. With the newest poll out for the soccer team, when was the last year that the Buffs women's soccer team was ranked at number 14? We'll have that answer later on in the show.
While they look to give us more trivia questions or wins, they have another Big 12 matchup tomorrow against Texas Christian University at Prenta Field. This game is set to kick off at noon. All eyes are on this one as TCU is currently ranked 23rd in the national rankings. The Horned Frogs are also outscoring the Buffs so far this season, averaging 2 goals a game while CU is averaging just under that. However, the Buffs defense has been a little more dominant. They have only allowed 6 goals, while TCU has allowed 10. Overall, the game will come down to opportunities. CU has done better at creating chances to score and limiting chances. If they can keep that trend going and finish on a couple opportunities, they should be able to celebrate tomorrow.
The volleyball team had a tough week in Utah last week. They dropped the first game to number 17, ranked BYU 3-1 as the Buffs traveled to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes. They dropped another conference game as they lost 3-2 in the final game of the week. They faced number 8 ranked Kansas on Thursday. They lost 3-1 again. Let's take a more in-depth look now at that Kansas game. Here's our very own Brittany Garcia from the postgame.
Hello, my name is Brittany Garcia from Skill Buffs Sports, and tonight the Kansas Jayhawks defeated the Buffs 3-1, and tonight was a lot of back and forth, as both sides did a very great job with hitting, as the Buffs had a percentage hitting over 190 and the Jayhawks had over 286. Some key players tonight was Taylor Simpson and Anna Burilovich, as Simpson had a total of 43 assists, and Burilovich had 19 kills for the night. The Buffs powered through the entirety of the matchup, but fell 25-11 in the 4th set. The Jayhawks hitting was so out of control, as the hitting percentage was 83% in just the 4th set, which had the Buffs difficulty receiving the Jayhawks side of the ball. During the press conference, head coach Jesse Mahoney said, "We need to work on our passing rotations." Heading into Saturday's matchup against Texas Tech, the Buffs are hoping to reset and take control of the game against the Raiders. They are back here at the CU Event Center at 7 p.m. Again, I'm Brittany Garcia from Skill Buff Sports.
With the Buffs sitting at a 7-8 record on the year, they will face the Texas Tech Red Raiders on Saturday. The Red Raiders are coming in with a 9-6 record, but are fresh off a 4-game losing streak. After wrapping up the homestand, the team travels to Orlando to take on the Central Florida Knights next Wednesday. UCF currently has an 8-4 record, but are only 1-2 in conference play so far this season.
If you slept on the 14th annual Mark Simpson Colorado Invitational, you missed some serious action. Justin Brewer was out there making birdies like he had cheat codes. Straight up unstoppable. Dude's been chasing that win for months, and he finally said, nah, this one's mine. He was so hot out there. After a string of near misses, Brewer absolutely owned the par fours, making them look like practice holes. No surprises though. Brewer's been working hard on that short game, and it paid off big time. The Buffs team was no joke either. 8 players finished under par, which is what we call some serious depth. Brandon Knight came in strong, tying for 10th with a solid 7 under, while Dylan McDermott held his ground at even par, tied for 14th. These guys were out there making waves. But Colorado State, they pulled off a comeback with 18 under 270 on the final day. It was enough to edge out the Buffs by 4 strokes, handing them the win. Coach Roy Edwards has to be proud of his team though. 8 guys under par, that's like hitting a hole in one in terms of team depth. This was also the Buffs' 3rd best performance ever on a par 72 course. But really, this was Brewer's moment. That first collegiate win is going to stick with him. After a string of 2nd place finishes, he finally got to taste victory. In the end, the Buffs finished 2nd, but they showed up strong and proved they're a team to watch this season. CSU might have taken this one, but the Buffs will be back. Next week, they're heading to Hockley, Texas for the Big 12 Match Play Championship, October 7th to 9th. 6 players will hit the course, switching in and out for some intensive 5-on-5 showdowns.
The women's golf team placed 5th and 8th in their first 2 tournaments of the year. Today, they travel to the University of Denver's Golf Club to compete in the first round of the Ron Moore Intercollegiate. The 2nd and 3rd rounds will be played on Saturday and Sunday, respectively. The Buffs look to capture their first top 3 finish of the year. After the tournament, Colorado will have 2 weeks to rest before they travel to Stanford to compete against the reigning national champs at their tournament.
Colorado women's hoops forward Tabitha Betson was awarded as the Big 12 preseason freshman of the year on Thursday. The 6'2" native of Melbourne, Australia, played her high school days at DME Academy in Florida, reaching the top 50 on ESPN's Class of 2024 recruiting ranks. She also has experience with the land down under, competing in international tournaments since her days as a mid-teen. She notably captained the Victorian team and played a key role in Australia's run-in the 2022 U17 World Cup. For an in-depth look at Betson's story and potential with the Buffaloes, check out Harrison Simeon's latest article on our website.
Even though Buffs basketball is still about a month away, the WNBA playoffs are in full swing right now. And one Colorado alumna has gotten postseason playing time in her rookie year. Jalen Sherrod, the point guard who led the Buffs to back-to-back Sweet 16s, logged her first career playoff minutes for the top-seeded New York Liberty. In classic Sherrod fashion, she recorded a steal in 3 minutes of action. The Liberty play tonight in hopes of clinching a spot in the WNBA Finals, which would get Sherrod one step closer to being a WNBA champion. Week 1 of the season for our baseball and women's hockey teams kicked off last week. We have those and all the club sports action coming up right after this week.
Who wants to do basketball? Who wants to do football? Who wants to do soccer? Who wants to do volleyball?
That's so sick. Did Christian just say that?
Videography. Anyone want to do that?
For the women's hockey team, they had an incredible opening week as they swept the Utah Utes in a 2-game series to begin the year unbeaten. They won the 2 games by a combined score of 6-3, looking like a well-oiled machine on both sides of the ice. They embark on a road trip this week to take on Massachusetts tonight, followed by a 2-game series against Rhode Island over the weekend.
The men's D1 hockey team wrapped up a 2-game series against the Colorado State Rams this past week, losing in both games. Game 1 was a high-scoring affair which ended in a shootout, with the Buffs coming up short by a score of 6-5. Game 2 was another close 1-score loss for CU, this time ending in regulation with a final score of 4-3. The Buffs are back on the road this week as they take on the 2-2 Missouri State Bears tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Time and tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Men's D2 hockey had a very successful week as they won last Friday against the Augustana Vikings. The Buffs won in dominant fashion by a score of 7-2. CU now sits at a record of 3-3 as they enter their two-game series against Colorado State. The first game is at home in the Rec Center at 7 p.m., with the second game taking place tomorrow in Fort Collins in the Adora Pool Ice Center at 8 p.m.
The women's club soccer teams, gold, silver, and black, were busy last week and this past weekend competing in the CU Invitational amongst 5 other teams. All the games were played at the university. Colorado Silver tied with Utah Valley 1-1 in the quarterfinals, while Colorado Gold beat Colorado Black 3-1, taking the championship. But keep your eye out for their upcoming games. Tomorrow, Colorado Gold and Silver will compete against each other at the CU Athletic Field at noon. Coming up close behind them, Black will be playing Colorado College at the CU Athletic Grass at 2 p.m. On Sunday, Gold plays the School of Mines at the CU Athletic Grass at noon, and Silver will take on Colorado College in the Springs at Stewart Field at 4 p.m.
The men's club soccer teams had more of a relaxing past week than the women's teams. Colorado White had a bye week, while Gold and Black competed against each other at Kittredge Field, with Gold taking the win 1-0. Gold also played at Air Force, taking home a big win for the club with a score of 4-1. Yet, it looks like the teams have a busier schedule coming up. Colorado Gold will be on the road for 2 games, the first one being tonight against BYU, and then competing against Mesa on Saturday. Black will be playing an away game on Sunday against Wyoming, but don't worry, if you want some home games, Colorado White has not 1, but 2 games this weekend. White will start their weekend out tomorrow against Metro at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at the Athletic Field, following with a game on Sunday against their rivals, the CSU Rams. Catch it at Kittredge Field at 2 p.m.
The club baseball team began their fall ball season last weekend with a 3-game series against the Air Force Falcons. Pitching struggles gave Air Force 2 wins on Saturday, but the Buffs were able to rally in Game 3 and avoid the sweep in a 9-6 victory. Baseball prepares to do it all again tomorrow against the Colorado School of Mines. So be sure to tune in to our live broadcast on the Scova Sports YouTube channel tomorrow at 11 a.m.
The softball team swept Colorado Mesa University in a 3-game series in Boulder this past weekend. The team looked very impressive at the plate and in the field as they won the first game 8-0. They took the second 11-3 and the last game 4-1. Coming off of a regional playoff appearance last spring and now a 3-0 start, the softball team will look to keep rolling.
Now, it's time for the return of Play of the Week. We asked you on our Twitter, which of these 4 spectacular plays was the best? First, was it Travis Hunter's insane diving interception of KJ Jefferson? And, he struck the Heisman pose. Is that foreshadowing, as the announcer said? We'll have to see. Man, that was sweet. And, of course, Will Shepard, before that happened in the first half, a sick diving catch. What looked like a sure interception turned into 6 for the Colorado Buffaloes to take a 14-7 lead. And Jordan Knightus, wow. That's just one of multiple saves that she's had this season that have been, what I would say, ESPN top 10 worthy. And last, Jared Walsh, a steal of home against the Air Force Falcons. I know it only made it 6-1, but man, that was something. The winner will be revealed later on in the show.
It's time for the answer to this week's trivia question. Earlier, we asked you, when was the last year that the Buffs women's soccer team was ranked at number 14? And the answer, 2007. That season, the Buffs ended up in the second round of the NCAA tournament. The team has never been ranked higher than 14. So we'll see if this year's Buffs can set the school record.
For our tweet of the week, we're showcasing the most liked post in Scova Sports history. Here's the best shot of Travis Hunter's Heisman post you will see, taken from our very own photographer, Roberto Patrick Guerra, as previously mentioned in the show. You can find this photo and his other work on Instagram under the handle BertoJPG.
Now it's time to unveil our play of the week. Drum roll, please. The winner, receiving 36% of the vote, is Who else? Travis Hunter. The Heisman hopeful was his usual unbelievable self on both sides of the ball on Saturday, laying out for this massive pick against the Knights. It has been one of the plays of not only the week, but of the season so far around sports in Boulder. Before we say so long, here's Brittany Garcia with this week's Rapid Fire.
Hello, my name is Brittany Garcia, and I'm here to catch you up on the CU sports this week with Rapid Fire. First, starting off shortly after the show at 7 p.m., the Division II Hockey Buffs will take on CSU Rams for the Rocky Mountain Showdown tonight at the CU Rec Center. Then Saturday, they will travel to Fort Collins. Then the women's golf team will be heading to Highlands Ranch starting on Friday and will have 3 rounds, which will go until Sunday. They'll be facing off Denver University during these matches. Next, the women's soccer team will be facing number 23 TCU here at Prentup Field Saturday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, and this game will be watched on ESPN+. Then the volleyball team will continue their run of home games this week with facing off against Texas Tech at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and this game can be seen on ESPN+. Well, that's it for all the sports that I have this week for Rapid Fire, and I'm Brittany Garcia, back to you guys at the desk.
Wow, that was a speedy set of events. But that's all we have for this week. My name is Oliver Hayes.
And my name is Saisri Kumar. We'll catch you next week for another live show. No weeks off.